Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Today's guest is Doug Hall. He's an innovation expert, serial entrepreneur, and the author of a new book, Proactive Problem Solving. Doug is the founder of Eureka Ranch and Brain Brew Distillery and has been named a top innovation expert by the Wall Street Journal, Inc., and CIO magazine. Doug brings decades of experience from helping companies like Procter & Gamble, Nike, Disney, and American Express fast-track big ideas. He's on a mission today to stop the stupid by teaching leaders how to solve problems before they start. Doug, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
Stop the stupid is a phrase that just totally made me giggle, and because I have a phrase that there's something that I can't fix and it's stupid, STOOOOPID. And the number of O's in the middle of that tell you just how bad I think the situation is. So that phrase just rung so true to me.
Well, it's interesting. The whole focus is on employee engagement. It's by making them proactive problem solvers of the broken systems that exist. And what's got me fired up today is we do a lot of research at the Eureka Ranch, and we're always tracking things and trends and different things. And we did a survey on culture. At first, I said that the data's got to be wrong. We have a full-time statistician. I said, check this math again. This can't be right. He came back and said, it's right. And then I started talking to people, and everybody said, I think it's low. And that was the simple fact. We asked managers how much time they waste each day dealing with broken systems, communications, SOPs, whatever, stuff, and employee mistakes. And they said, when we did the math, it's like 3.5 hours a day. 3.5 hours a day. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolute crazy. Overwhelmingly, over 3/4 of it was not employee mistakes. Only 22% were employee mistakes. It was all about the systems, the work systems, how we work, how we get the work done. And so we've got flawed systems that people have got workarounds with, and it's making them miserable. And so I got on this movement to take what we've done with inventing big ideas and say, can we figure out how to ignite employees? And I had a personal need for it, because I'd started a little craft distillery that exploded in size, and we had to have these people, the employees, with us as we had to keep evolving the system, because every time you go up in volume, there's new things that were little problems become big problems as you get bigger and bigger. And so we needed to have them engaged, and that set off an effort to create proactive problem solving. And it's fascinating. I'm absolutely blown away at the impact. And the problem I faced was when we put a training program together, and most training has an implied criticism. You are faulty, so take this class and now you'll be well, right? And most people sit in the room and are like, yeah, whatever. We'll go through this, eyes roll. They're not going to be engaged. And I was doing one of the early prototypes of this, and I said, I got to get their attention. And I said, well, what the guys in the distillery say is they shortened this. They made this pretty simple. They said, this is not anything fancy. He said, no, what you're talking about is our job is to stop the stupid stuff that gets in the way of us being able to do our work and in the way of the company. And it was tongue in cheek at first, but man, it's become like a mantra for people. And what I find is if you try to get some people together to be creative and invent, to help the company make more money and to grow and the shareholders, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But if you say, stop the stupid, is there stuff in your sphere of influence that's causing a problem? They get it. And I'll give you one real simple example, but it just hits me so much. There was a lady at one of the companies we were doing this, and the CEO had all employees of one of the big factories was there. In this case, it was the factory, plus we were doing IT and other departments. But one lady put her hand up, and I said, what do you got that's stupid? She says, my back hurts. I said, your back hurts? Yeah. She says, I help assemble these machines that we make. And when we're done, me and another lady who's about my size, not very tall, We have to lift them up and put them into the box. And my back hurts. I said, "Oh, well, our team leader was there and we started to talk about it and we kicked around some things. And the team leader said, well, they're actually in another part of the factory. They use a different kind of box." I go, "Tell me more." He said, well, instead of building the box and putting the unit in it, we roll the box on the machine onto the cardboard and build the box around it. Voila, no back pain. And that changed. Needless to say, that lady whose back hurt, she is now selling proactive problem solving like you've never seen before because there's a benefit to her. And so if you want to change a culture, I am fascinated by the psychology it takes to enable people to do stuff. And I'll stop ranting, but I'm kind of wound up about this.
No, I love that you're wound up about it because I have a core belief that in business, everything begins with our people, the people who are doing the work. Without them, we have nothing. We don't have a product. We don't have a service. Other people that are really important, right, are our customers and clients, right, on both ends of this equation. We start and end with people. Businesses don't always remember how valuable they are. And in your practical problem solving approach is also something that I fundamentally believe in, that all innovation really starts in the heads of the employees because they know what's stupid. And your use of the word stupid or mine, right? It's both tongue in cheek, but it's the same idea that if we look around us and we go, we can use business jargon now. We can ask the 5 whys and figure out, the root cause and why things are done the way that they are. But more often than not, the people who deal with it day in and day out already know that answer. You just have to ask the question.
Yeah, the challenge that happens to defend the leadership a little bit here, because we have to, because you got to look at this thing fairly as you look at this thing. They've got big issues. And in today's world, it's tough. It's tough being a leader of an organization. It's really tough. And so while her back hurts, and that's regrettable, of all of the priorities the CEO has, that's probably not high on the list. And his specialized problem solving team can't be focused on that because they got bigger issues. However, that doesn't mean we can't fix our problem. But to do that, we have to build it from the bottom up. And that's why literally with proactive problem solving, I've literally put it together and I've got training programs for 3 groups: for the team leaders, for their managers, and for leadership. And they each have a different role in this. And what I found is you can change the culture, but to do it, you got to do it from the bottom up, the middle out, and the top down. And if you don't work the 3 dimensions of this, it's not going to happen. But if you do, you now get extra capacity. Because if those work teams in their sphere of influence are enabled, empowered, and given systems for identifying the problems, articulating them, solving them, and then driving out risk of implementation, which is the 3 sections of the proactive problem book: the problem, the solutions, and then making it happen with less risk. Really simple. Really simple. By giving them methods that they're doing, then you can enable it. It's not unlike the military. The military teaches the teams and the squads, and they're self-functioning groups, and they have a lot of latitude on how they deploy the mission and accomplish their mission because they're the ones closest to the enemy, closest to the work, to use the analogy at an organization. And so what we got to do is not disrupt the organization's focus on the big things. We got to do those because we got to pay the bills. However, if we can turn on these team managed leaders and the managers of departments to be able to continuously improve it, what that does is it builds their confidence, builds their capability. And then when you start to work big projects, it's going to help because we've done research and it's really sad. I got 3 separate studies that show quantitatively that when an idea goes into development, you got a big, crazy idea, big new product, big new service, or an upgrade to an existing product, something significant, really meaningful, unique, a real big wow. When that idea goes into development, we can do a valuation on it of what the potential sales are or revenue is. When the idea comes out of development and is ready to go to market, on average, that idea that we started with has lost 50% of its value. Now, people didn't try to just kill the idea, but what happened is if the employees are not engaged, if the system's not engaged, and it comes to your department and it's different, because to do something different, you got to do something different. To give the customer something different, you got to do something different. Then what we've got to do is we've got to bring them with us, because otherwise they'll compromise on the idea and they'll make a little thing, a little change, and another little change. And the next department does another little change. And by the time you're done, you've lost half the value. So yeah, we need them not only to do the small stuff, but to help us do the big stuff.
That number is staggering, and I don't know that I've actually seen that the 50% loss in value quantified. I have felt it, right? I have experienced going through that process.
That's by 1,000 cuts, 1,000 little cuts.
Right. And sometimes, right, the 50% is probably actually an optimistic number, because there are others that are probably 80 and 90%, the things I would call like the zombie projects that should have had the no-go decision made somewhere along the line, but you just keep pushing forward because it was a great big idea. That is fabulous. And in that, right, you're talking about in the system some fundamental things that most large corporations are used to using: organizational change management. That's the part where we take people on that journey with us. So where they were in the beginning and where they are when that big idea goes to market, if they're all still well aligned, you get rid of that valuation loss. And you mentioned specifically ongoing continuous improvement, right? These are systems that need to continuously be updated and improved. And when something is stupid, it gets removed so that there's no waste of time, money, energy. And this is all fundamental to a culture. And most large organizations see things like project management, process management, organizational change as divisions inside of that business, and not necessarily the power of how that business should operate. And I think that you're looking at it through a different lens.
Yeah, it's a different, it starts with a belief. My work is all grounded on the work by a fellow that many listeners may know, some may not. His name was Dr. W. Edwards Deming. And he was the guy that after World War II went to Japan. Japan had a negative net worth, and it was the father of system thinking. And my dad worked with him when he first worked at Nasher Corp. And full disclosure, I am actually, the family has put me on the board of the Deming Institute. And Deming famously said, 94% of the problems are caused by the system, 6% the worker. And he identified the fact that there were special cause and common cause. Common cause are errors of the system that the worker can't impact. And special cause are ones where the workers made a mistake. That they just made a mistake, and there's an issue that we got to deal with. The people want to do good things. And I think we're in a cultural time now. And I don't have any interest in politics, and I'm not going to say it one way or the other, but we have a collection of systems here where our belief in our people, we all say it, but do we live it? Are we making this? Are they engaged? In fact, one of the ways to measure this, the best way I know to measure your culture, is how many changes. So you have a work process. In finance, you have work process, manufacturing, sales actually will have sales processes that they got to do. And those processes done right are documented in an SOP or a standard operating procedure, and there's a way you do work. And one of the best ways to know how innovative your culture is, how many changes have you made in your SOPs? And our goal is to get 2 to 4 per employee per month. That's continuous improvement. That's real improvement. That's getting ready for the marketplace of today with the changes and pivots that we need. That's resilience. That's the kind of organization you want.
I want to stop and dig into this, because that is fabulous and it's so true. Many businesses only pull out their SOP type documentation when they're getting ready for some form of an audit. Somebody is coming in to look and have them demonstrate what they do and how they do it. Those businesses are not continuously improving. They are stuck in the way we've always done it, are an example of an opportunity to do everything better and different. But if you're talking about an environment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lisa, what's interesting is I was talking with the bourbon company, we have different people that come by, and I was talking with a lawyer who chases ambulances, kind of thing. And I was talking about SOPs. He said, oh, they're the easiest way to win. If there's a mistake, we pull the standard operating procedure, and then we start asking people if they follow this process and see if they did it. And he says, sure enough, they'll be way out of date. You can pretty much know that. No knowledge of them and not following what there is there. And he says, and then I win. They settle.
That is a simple, elegant answer to why it's so important that we live and breathe our processes and that we understand our systems. And the goal that you've set, 2 to 4 changes per process, per employee, per month. That is how fast things change, and that is how fast we go, "Gosh, I've been doing it this way, and my back hurts," and we've made an instant improvement. I had a client that had this whole disgustingly complex process, and everything hinged on the Friday 3 PM report. Something had to be in a file folder on a file server every Friday by 3 PM, or the rest of everything broke. When we went to look at what was actually in the Friday 3 PM report, they were blank Word documents with the date of the Friday, and nothing else was in them. And we went back through years and could not find when it actually had something that had value. But if it
No
wasn't in the
kidding.
no kidding, if it wasn't in that file folder, the next process that came to look for something stopped and bad things followed. But nobody could remember what it was that was important. Years. Someone made a file, named it dated it Friday, whatever, and put it right. This is insane, right? Somebody who did that every Friday should have been going, why am I doing it? And there were lots of O's in that stupid for me that I went on that forever and ever because, oh my God, that is just crazy.
So, but now if you're a leader, it's important. Stopping the stupid of the little stuff that you're doing for the managers and the things they get it. What do we need psychologically to get the leaders? And the conversation I'm finding engages them is when you had dreams of becoming a leader, vice president, CEO, president, whatever it might be. My guess is you had dreams of the great things you were going to be able to do, the strategic initiatives and the focus. And now you got to the job and it's not at all like what you got. And all I have to do is stop at that point and I get blah, 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 blah. I said it even worse than that. When you do your strategic planning, because Eureka Ranch, we do a lot of strategic planning. And right now, proactive problem solving is becoming core to the strategic planning process. And companies are bringing in proactive problem solving as they do their strategic, because what they realize is that they're taking their plans and they have a vision of what they want to do. But then they look at their culture as to what their culture can do, its capabilities, its speed, its confidence, its ability to innovate. And because they don't have high confidence in the culture, they reduce their goals till, they're now not doing the big thing that they wanted to do. And because they say they've got to become reasonable. And I say, with proactive problem solving, I will allow you to be unreasonable and to do great things.
Yes.
To do great things, to do the cool stuff that matters. Because now you'll have a capability and confidence that they can deliver on it up to 5 times faster with 80% less risk. That's the numbers. That's the numbers that proactive problem solving will give you, is a culture that is literally 5 times faster with 80% less risk. So, hello, what are you waiting for?
Absolutely. I totally agree. McKinsey surveyed CEOs. 90% of them say that innovation is key to their future success of their businesses. 6% said that they had teams capable of innovating.
That's my goal. I want to
Yes.
get those teams. I want to fire them up like you've not seen. And then they realize joy in work, because people aren't having fun. And you have fun when you do stuff that matters.
Absolutely. Doug, we have had a lot of fun with this conversation. If you've piqued the interest and curiosity of members of the audience, how do they find you and learn more about practical problem solving?
You can go to eurekaranch.com, but doughall.com. And we've got a link right there for proactive problem solving. And you can get the book. And it's also, we were very fortunate. It came out in January and it went to a bestseller on a number of the Amazon lists, which is encouraging. But I also have a deal for the first year of this book. This is how committed I am to it. I'm doing keynotes and training programs for companies, whether they be for team leaders, for managers, or leadership. And it's at half price this year, just to get this going. just to get this going. And more than happy to come and hang out. And I also bring maybe a little bit of bourbon with me. Our Dexter brand just won huge double gold, 96 points. It's been named one of the 12 best
Fabulous.
bourbons. So we can also sit and have some chats.
That's awesome. I just did a strategic planning workshop a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of it, everybody in the room was like, "So are we going to the bar now?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not allowed to do that for you. I'm so sorry." But I guess we could, if we built it into the scope appropriately, we could sit around and have some bourbon. Doug,
We build it in. We build a tasting experience. There's an
there it is.
innovation class there.
It's a tasting experience.
After almost 50 years of dealing with big corporations, I know every game to work around these rules.
Audience members, I just have my takeaway for the day. But Doug, thank you so much for sharing what you have developed with practical problem solving, starting with the idea that managers are estimating they're wasting roughly half a day on broken systems. And that means it's not that they don't have people who are capable, it's that their processes are failing to enable their people to do what they're meant to do. And with this practical problem solving method that you've brought forward, the way that you've designed training takes away the sense that you, the participant, is faulty and you are something that needs to be fixed, but changes that mindset so that we can stop the stupid stuff and focus on what really, really matters. Doug took us through his examples where the process is simple, right? What is the problem? What is the solution? How do we make it happen? The key to the success is understanding what that means at 3 levels of the organization, at the senior leadership strategically, at that team lead operationally, and the individual contributor who is tactically doing the work. If all 3 of those are aligned, big change can happen, and we can build cultures that drive continuous improvement and are capable of delivering the big ideas without wasting crucial value from it. Doug, thank you so much for the conversation. Audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.